Hello, everybody. 5G is emerging as the foundation of advanced communication services and also as the digital infrastructure supporting socio-economic development and driving industrial digital transformation, paving the way to digital economy, which is becoming more and more relevant for the global GDP and is expected to reach $23 trillion by year 2025. Digital economy will impact all verticals and will include several technologies such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data, and cloud services, just to mention the most relevant ones. LATAM region should speed up their process to facilitate the development and deployment, and most important, the adoption of these technologies, and especially 5G, as the foundation for the digital ecosystem. Spectrum and regulation play a fundamental role in making 5G a success. Welcome to Huawei's Showcase, where we will present you our capabilities and innovative solutions for 5G deployment, as well as some spectrum best practices in different regions. Our agenda includes a live virtual tour to our Galileo Hall in China with our expert Liniang Qing. After that tour, we'll have an open session with you to exchange ideas and experiences, and we will have Mr. Cesar Funes, VP of Public Affairs for Huawei in Latin America with us. So let's start our session, and with you, Mr. Chang, directly from China. Hello, Cheng. The audience is all yours.
Dear guests from Latin America, welcome to Huawei 5G Exhibition Hall. My name is Lin Yanqing. Today it's really my pleasure to introduce you around this hall, and we talk about the spectrum-related topics. Actually, this hall has a name called Galileo. You see that old gentleman there? He is Galileo, who invented telescope around 400 years ago and discovered a lot of new stuff in the universe. And today, pretty much we want to follow this spirit and discover the new things in 5G world. And we start here. Pretty much we understand the Shannon's theorem defines the maximum capacity for a given spectrum. Now, all the things we are talking about today is about this. How we can approach the limit of the Shannon's theorem, and also Moore's law, right, defines the ICT semiconductor industry development. So over the last 30 years, Huawei has invested heavily on the ICT front to develop new things. In 5G alone, from 2009, Huawei has invested totally more than $4 billion from the 5G algorithm, the chipset, the device, the base station, core network, and applications, end-to-end, everything. And we have invested heavily. And not only just money, but also people. You know, we have a lot of very smart guys working with us, right? They are the engineers, the scientists in different domains that contribute to the innovation, the development of the 5G related things. And with all those investments, now we are leading member in 3GPP in contribution to the 5G standard. For example, we have contributed totally more than 21,000 5G proposals to 3GPP. And if those proposals being accepted by the standard body, and then with the endorsement from ITU, then it's global standard. A unified 5G standard is quite important to the industry development. We know that from 2G and 3G, we have many different standards. And now 4G almost just several, and 5G we have one. That is very good, very essential for the industry development. And all those investment and also gives us a leading position in the 5G patents. For example, we have declared more than 3,300 essential patents to the ETSI, European Telecom Standard Institute, which is around 20% of the global essential patents, also number one in the industry. Essential patents has a unique and very important meaning to the industry, which means if the other vendors, they want to develop 5G products, they will have to use it. They cannot go around it. All those brings us a leading position in the 5G product solutions. For example, here in 2018, we were the industry first to launch end-to-end 5G solutions. And actually, this entrance, go inside, we can see this is a 5G main hall. It is quite big and a lot of things. And today I will introduce some very important things to all of you. On that side is 5G related services in different industries. And on the center, you can see here is a 5G ecosystem island. We demonstrate a different kind of terminals and devices. And on the left side here is 5G end-to-end products and technologies. But first, I will update you about the 5G overall development. So now, actually, we can talk about some numbers. The first number is about more than 110 commercial 5G networks are up and running now in the world, including those networks in China, in Japan, in Europe, in Middle East, in South Korea. So many networks are already up and running. They're providing connection to more than 180 5G users. In China alone, we have more than 130 million 5G users already. So by the end of the year, we hope that globally could be more than 250 million 5G users. We can reach the number, hopefully. And that development actually is faster than previous generation 4G. To reach 100 million users, 4G used 3 years, and 5G just 1 year. Some reasons behind that. The number one reason is about the device. So you can see now in the market, we can have more than 440 different kind of 5G device. Most of them are smartphones, right? You have so many different choice for the end users that will have the incentive or inclination to use 5G. Plus, we can see iPhone 12 just launched, which will boost the 5G development globally. And the number two reason is about the price of the 5G device. So you can see that in the market in China now, we already have the smartphone, 5G smartphone, a decent smartphone with a price tag $150. So that's a very good price point that could be accepted by the majority of the consumers in different markets. And of course, the second reason is operators. They have done an excellent job to develop the 5G markets. For example, in South Korea, they use a lot of different services like AR and VR to develop 5G users. And in China, all three operators, they have developed a plan in the industries, vertical industries, like the port, the airport, the smart transportation, etc. And with all those efforts, they have a very positive financial result. For example, here in South Korea, there's a revenue growth positive, and China operators, China Mobile, 3.2% revenue growth versus last year. So very positive. But another very important thing is the regulator. Without the support from the regulators, that cannot happen, right? So for the global regulators, the first one is to choose the right spectrum for 5G. For example, here, we pretty much know that C-band is mainstream. So embrace the mainstream means you can fully utilize the economy of scale and also ecosystem. The C-band, we see already 26 countries allocated and potentially 20 other countries will do that, including China, the German, South Korean, etc. And also, the other two bands, 2.6 and 2.3, are also very important. Especially for the 2.3, you can see already 4 countries like UK, Denmark, Saudi Arabia, and Russia already, allocated 2.3, and potentially 18 other countries will allocate the spectrum as well, because the mid-band, they have a balance of the spectrum capacity. That's the leading band for 5G and primary band. And the second one, to fully, unleash the 5G power, the continuously big bandwidth is preferred. For example, here you can see all the major mobile operators in the world, they have, the 5G bandwidth continuous more than 80 megahertz. And in some countries, some operators, they have even more than 100 megahertz continuous in C-band, because that we know the first one, it can support a big capacity in 5G with a big continuous bandwidth. Second, continuous bandwidth has a much higher efficiency than the scattered different blocks of spectrum bands. And also, we understand that ICT can, stimulate economy growth, especially after this pandemic. We pretty much want to recovery from the pandemic. So different countries, they want to use 5G to stimulate economic growth. That is why they say that operators, if they pay too much for spectrum fee, for example, in 3G and 4G, the operators pay a lot of money for spectrum. They do not have enough money to roll out the networks. So that in 5G auctioning of the spectrum, the price is much lower than the 4G for the operators. For example, here, different countries are different. For example, here is Switzerland, about 1/3, and Austria, about 1/10, and most of countries half, and even 1/4 of the spectrum fee compare 5G to 4G. So the price, reasonable pricing, is very important for operators to roll out the network fast. More than that, if operators has to pay the spectrum fee at one time, that's going to be a burden to them. So that in different countries have different ways to ease that pressure. Example, in China, Saudi Arabia and UAE, they request the operator to submit annual fee. That's a reasonable annual fee. For example, in China, it's around $100 million for 100 megahertz a year. So that is way less than 1% of the operator's revenue in such a big country. And the other countries like Thailand, Spain, Ireland, they allow operators to have the installment payment. They don't have to pay just a one-time lump sum fee at one time. You can pay down payment, right, to help them to invest on the networks. And here we can see an example from Thailand, because Thailand, they see the value and the importance of the ICT. So they're positioning 5G in a very high position. They do have a national 5G strategy for Thailand. And they say that the 5G can bring $75.4 billion to the economy. So that they not only just reduce the price for the 5G. You can see here, 5G compared with 4G only 14.5%. But also they allow operators to pay the first year is 10%. The next 3 years, they don't have to pay the money if they can meet the coverage obligation. For example, they require operators to provide 50% of the coverage in the Eastern Economic Corridor. It's a region in Thailand. If they can meet that requirement, they don't have to pay the spectrum fee for the next 3 years. And then in the following several years, they pay 15% a year. That greatly eases the burden of the operators. And also, regulators, they can have an important role to bridge the digital divide. Here we have a perfect example from Colombia. Mintic has allocated 700 meg spectrum December last year, and those three operators, they got different blocks of the 700. But there is a coverage obligation for the rural because 700 is a golden spectrum. So if they can meet 60 all those coverage target for the villages in the rural area, for example, here more than 3,000 villages, if they can connect with 4G technologies, 60% of the spectrum cost can be compensated by the government. So that's an incentive for the operators to invest to bridge the digital divide. We see all this kind of practice has been common in different countries. And now let's take a look at the 5G products. You can see here, this is Huawei's latest 5G product with a very strong performance. But at the same time, the size and weight are pretty much optimized. For example, here, this size compared with the previous generation is 1/3, even less. And the weight is 28 kilo, so easy for the engineers to mount on the top of the towers so that it will help operators to roll out network quickly, but at the same time can manage the cost for the deployment. And Huawei has collaborated with operators in different markets to have some innovative solutions. For example, this one, we call it Blade solution, which integrates the 2G, 3G, and 4G, and 5G into one unit, so that on the top of the tower, you just mount one unit. This coming from a European operator that came to us say, we have a very strict regulations say we don't need, we cannot have many antenna elements on top of towers. So can you help us to integrate the existing network, 3G, 4G, and 5G together? That is why we work with them to work out the solution. It integrates our different technologies into one box. So mounting this on the top of the tower, just one providing all the access technologies that help operators to reduce cost and also reduce the assistance from the general public for the healthy concerns. And the first very important service we see from the 5G is the fixed wireless access. I don't know how about the Latin American countries, but in some countries in the world, for example, the Middle Eastern countries like Kuwait, they rely heavily on the wireless to provide broadband connection. In the past, they used WiMAX or LTE as a broadband connection. And now with 5G comes, they mount one 5G base station, and it can connect up to 200 households with connection up to 200 Mbps. Because we have some outdoor unit, this 5G CP wing can pretty much pick up signal with high efficiency because the outdoor connects to the base station. So the connection quality is much better than the mobile phones. And we understand that if you have a 5G, it's like you have a Lamborghini. At the same time, if you don't have a good road to drive that Lamborghini, that will limit the performance. That road is a 5G backhaul. So 5G one base station can give you up to 10 gig, capacity. Then the 5G backhaul will have to meet that requirement. We know that now in the world, 70% of the micro base stations are connected by microwaves, right? In the Latin market, it could be higher, 80%. And in the world, we have more than 4 million microwave nodes still working today. That is why not only we focusing on the radio part, but also transmission part for the microwave to innovate a little bit more to support evolution of the backhaul. For example, here, we know when you install microwave, the two antennas must point to each other precisely. You cannot have some shaking, but in fact, in the environment, you have wind, so the shaking of the antennas cannot be avoided. That's why we developed this intelligent beam tracking technologies, so that allow the antennas to shaking the degrees up to 1.5, right? So that even you have some strong wind, that can still work fine, right? And we pretty much understand to improve the capacity, we need more microwave spectrum. Take a look here, right? We pretty much understand still many countries, many markets heavily rely on microwave connection for the backhaul, connection. And for the E-band is very important one and probably the only way to provide a big capacity for 5G, right? We already see that 86 countries already assign the E-band spectrum, because even before you deploy the 5G network, you need to get the backhaul transmission ready. That's why more countries assign E-band. And then some European operators already use E-band as backhaul. And for the Middle Eastern countries, they have deployed more than 3,000 nodes of E-band. And another one important question we cannot forget is the pricing. As we discussed in the first, that the 5G spectrum cost is much lower than 4G. So the same rule should be applied to the 5G microwave spectrum fee compared with 4G and previous generation. That cost should be controlled. The total cost should be lower, should be much lower than 4G to enable the quick and fast 5G deployment. And now let's take a look at the 5G, the real network performance. And actually in this hall, we do have China Mobile 4G and 5G. We have those two connections so that we can do a comparison of their network speed. Obviously, left side is 4G and right side is 5G. More than 10 times difference. This is for downlink. Uplink also close to 6 times difference for the 5G versus 4G. So now let's take a look on the services that 5G provides to the users and also the industry verticals. The first service we are talking about is coming from South Korean operator, right? When they deployed the 5G networks using Huawei end-to-end solutions, they're thinking very hard how they can attract more people to use 5G. So thinking about the K-pop is quite popular in South Korea, so they develop some services to attract the young people. For example, this is about some idol show, some girls dancing. And if you are a fan of some specific girl, then you can choose to view him specially, right? You view this lady and this girl. So you have multiple live channel to see a specific girl. Because 5G can support a big bandwidth to enable multiple streams to your device so that you can track the different people, right? And second case is about VR, right? Because they also, the young people have some idols. They want to have some interaction with their idols. So here is a VR dating. Young guys that want to date with their loved stars. You can use VR to do that. The only thing you need to do is wear a VR helmet, and you can have some interaction with the idols, right? Actually, VR with 5G is much better than 4G. Reason is very simple. The bandwidth, the latency in 5G is much better. That is why a lot of social companies like WeChat, like Facebook, they invest heavily in VR technologies, right? Next thing we're going to see is AR. So here, we actually simulate a band in the pandemic. They have to be locked down at their home, but they still need to practice together. And in some time, they want to show to their audience, see how they do that using 5G. And they play in different places, right? But because of the 5G bandwidth and the latency, they can let the audience feel like they're playing together and show together. So this 5G can bring some difference to the end users. And actually, more than entertainment, 5G can do some serious business in the industry verticals. For example, here, the AR for the maintenance. We actually carry out some trials with some big companies in China to use AR to do the maintenance work in their daily job. For example, you're using VR AR goggle, and you can see all the parameters and running status of a specific equipment, right? And that to help improve the efficiency of the maintenance. Although it's still in the early stage, but we can see a huge potential for the AR in the industry use. That also needs the support from 5G. Next thing we see here is about the 5G in the media industry. For example, in the past, when the CCTV in China, the central media company in China, they do a broadcasting of a big event like a soccer match, they will have to send some vehicles. This is a broadcasting vehicle with a satellite link. And this one actually pretty expensive, around $1 million each. And now with the 5G coming, this is a 5G enabled the module with a codec inside attached to this camera. So you can send a team of these guys on site. They can shooting from different angle, different position, different distance, and providing the live video feed into the central operation room. The good thing for this is, if you deploy an AR software in the center, the AR software can decide which one is the best for the end users or audience to view. That help improve the viewing experience. And more than just entertainment, actually now live broadcasting is a serious business in China. We actually can see many, big guys, stars, demonstrating the products in TikTok, China, which we call Douyin, and selling the products. Within 1 hour, 2 hours, they can hit more than 100 million Chinese yuan or even more, so easily. Even the farmers, they use 5G connected smartphones to demonstrate the products on their fields. Next one is about the 5G manufacturing industry. So here I will showcasing you some use cases from a demonstration. So you can I submit this request. This robot is connected by 5G. We do the precise movement to take the business card. And do the printing. So during this process, that camera is connected by 5G using the AR to check real-timely what about the quality of this process. And once complete, this two arms will make the movements in a collaborative way. We call it control-to-control movement. The camera also checks the quality of this business card. And once complete, we use a 5G connected AGV automatic guided vehicle to present this business card. And you can take a look at the finished quality of this business card. And actually now the AGVs, I know that is also running in China in Huawei Songshanhu factory, and also in Brazil, our local manufacturing factories, we have those AGVs running. We hope that we can deploy more such kind of cases once a big scale 5G network roll out in Latin America, right? And actually, for the 5G manufacturing, we need collaboration from multiple, different parties. That is why the 5G Asia, ACIA, is organized 3 years ago, and they try to collaborate the communication companies, the IT companies, the operational companies like ABB, Siemens, sit down and working together to push the 5G use cases in the manufacturing sector. And next thing we're going to see is a port, right? We know that if you're manufacturing something, you send to a customer, you need to choose the things to deliver. So today, actually, more than 90% of the international trade is delivered through the sea route. The reason very simple: cost. The cost is the lowest. And China has some big seaport right now, and this is coming from the world's biggest seaport. We call it Ningbo Zhoushan Seaport, right? And actually, every year, it delivers more than 28 million such kind of standard containers in and out. So you can imagine every hour, every minute, it delivers multiple, a lot of such kind of things in and out. So the top concern for these guys is the efficiency. That is why they came to Huawei and China Mobile and say, hey, since you deploy 5G network, can you help me to improve our operation efficiency? And we sit down with them to see how they can use 5G. And just raise a small example here, we use 5G connected rubber-tired, because it's rubber-tired cranes, to do the remote control to improve efficiency. In the past, a guy has to sit on the top of this one, to operate this crane, and the working condition is not very good, and efficiency also not very high. And now, with 5G coming, even a lady can sit inside the central room to do the remote control and operation of the multiple such cranes. The reason is simple, because this crane need the people's help only when it picks up a container and drop up this container to some tracks waiting there, right? So that one can operate multiple cranes at the same time if they do it remotely instead of sitting on top of this. Actually, now we have more such kind of cases in this seaport, right? And this is about coal mine. China is a big country, so we have many coal mines and more than 5,000 different size. And the top concern for the coal mines management is the security and safety of the workers, so that they use 5G to do the remote control and operation of those coal mine equipment, like this coal cutters, right? So in the past, somebody has to stand close to this coal cutter to do the control, right? You cut. And now, using 5G, somebody sitting in the central room can do the remote operation and control of that coal cutters, and still working fine, right? We have already deployed the system in Shanxi Yangquan Coal Mine Group. It's a big one, top one in China. They like this solution very much, right? We are deploying some more cases. For example, the 5G surveillance under the same coal mine to do the real-timely monitoring of the system working fine. And last one is about the 5G medical industry. We know that this pandemic has brought a big pressure to the medical system in many countries. That is why people are thinking how they can use 5G to improve the efficiency in the medical industry. For example, that one is 5G enabled remote collaboration for the patient, for the doctors in different cities to make a plan for the patient, right? And this mobile trolley we used during the peak time of the pandemic. A lot of patients locked down and in a closed place. You cannot send big team of people, doctors, nurses inside to do the check. So a nurse can push inside this vehicle, mobile trolley, with 5G connection and a lot of device. So doctors sitting in the office can do the remote check and consult for the patients. And here the last one is about the remote surgery. We know that release 16 has been released right this year with ultra low latency. So possibly in near future we can use 5G to do the remote surgery and operation. For example, here we simulate the two robotic arm remotely and using the 5G to connect and try to guide one arm holding a fiber, the other one is a needle. So we guiding this fiber through the eye of the needle, right? Good, so good. We got it down. Yeah, that is all for the 5G services in the different verticals. But with others, we see that spectrum is still an issue in this different industry. And we can see here, actually, we see the 5G in here. This number is coming from South Korea. That's Q4 last year. We see the 5G can bring the DOU by 2.7 times than 4G, right? And even now the 5G users only around 7.1%, but the total traffic in South Korea is more than 21.2%. So 5G can bring a lot of traffic. And also we see that AR and VR in the entertainment, in the different industry verticals, that can also bring a huge capacity requirement. Now here's an estimation from LGU Plus. By 2023, let's see 50% of their users are going to use the AR and VR services. And plus, we see the smart transportation, smart factory, smart port, and e-health, all those different industry verticals that generate huge data, huge amounts of data, so that they also require more spectrum. And just now we see the coal mine for that remote operation and also surveillance actually use a total of China Mobile's 160 meg spectrum for their operation, because it's deployed underground, so it does not bring any interference to the network on the surface. Right? So they need more spectrum. And if you say, okay, Wi-Fi can do the job. No, actually, not really, not really. Wi-Fi, in some cases, like you do the office work, that's fine. But if you do the industry work, for example, here, you do the surveillance, you do the augmented reality, they do the industry automation, it has a limit. The limit coming from because the Wi-Fi spectrum is unlicensed. Unlicensed means the system is easy to be in interference. Interference is a big issue for them. They cannot guarantee the quality and reliability. So if you want to meet a higher reliability use, you maybe have to transmit multiple times. That will impact the performance. So this number here is coming from Nokia Bell Labs, saying that if Wi-Fi want to achieve a good performance of the latency, it will have to sacrifice the capacity, right? You can see the capacity difference between 5G and Wi-Fi. This is because some very fundamental things on the unlicensed spectrum, on the very fundamental algorithm, on the codec, on the channel coding, some kind of thing like that. So that 6 GHz is very important for the IMT use versus Wi-Fi, right? It can really bring some change because 6G promises a big continuous bandwidth for the industry, for the end users to use. But one question, people will say, oh, 6G is working in the high frequency band. How about the coverage? How about the penetration? So here we actually have carried out some tests in Hangzhou, in CBD area. Here you can see this area is about 1 kilometer, the size. We deploy 5 6 GHz base stations, micro base station, with the intersite distance between 200 meters to 680 meters. I can see the coverage map here. This is 3.5 GHz, and this is 6 GHz. And the CDF result is pretty much the same, very close. The 6G can have the same performance coverage with the 3.5G. The reason It's very simple because 6G, the same antenna size, because it's a reduced antenna element, you can deploy more antenna elements in the same size antenna so that you can integrate high order MIMO to achieve the bigger coverage. So with more such kind of tests going on, we believe we will have more such kind of simulation and the test results. And actually, today, now is very important for 6 GHz for the MTUs. So you can see here, from the international standard body like ITU and 3GPP, they're working actively towards the target to identify 6G as an MT band. We know that WAC 23, 3 years later, is going to be very important for the world. Regulators sit down to decide how they're going to identify 6 GHz. And now some preparation work is on, especially for the coexistence with the existing services, like a satellite service, the microwave service. So how the 6G, if allocated to MTUs, how they can coexist. That's the key things to have some deep dives study. 3GPP has established a special team to study the 6 GHz usage in the standard. And also from the industry chain side, the vendors, they are doing the prototype, they're doing the testing from last year onwards, actually, from the chip side to device and base stations. So hopefully, within 1 or 2 years, the whole 6G ecosystem for the MTUs will be pretty much ready. So once they get that identification, they can be used. And to some industry associations like GSMA, 3GPP, Eternal is a big operators association in Europe, MT 2020 in China, they all confirmed their support to the 6 GHz identify as the MT, right? So that we think if we can have 6G to be used in MT, then all those kind of industry use cases and also AR, VR can be very well supported. I think with that, I conclude my presentation today. We present the 5G overall development. We present some best practice, spectrum management best practice in different countries, and also present you the products from Huawei, and also the use cases in different verticals. So I think if you have any questions, I think we can have a discussion now. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Lin and Jing. It's been a wonderful presentation. Thanks for you and all the team back in China. Now let's go back to Latin America. We have with us, as I said, Mr. Cesar Funes. So Cesar, jumping rapidly to the questions from our friends in the audience. There's a question about backhaul. Do you believe backhaul will become a bottleneck for 5G deployment, and how to deal with that?
Well, actually, it was part of the presentation, and it's part of our strategy. We look at also the spectrum required for 5G backhaul as an immediate and high priority need. Especially, we're talking about milliwave spectrum. We are clear, and we believe that the combination of low band, mid band, and milliwave for the spectrum access, for 5G access, is quite important. But specifically, as presented by Mr. Lin, the E-band is one that we believe is going to improve significantly the performance of the network once is properly harmonized and used by the operators.
And I would say, especially in those places where fiber deployment might be an issue, that's where we will be using this milliwave backhaul, right?
Yes, exactly. We are clear that in Latin America, that's a specific challenge that we have to overcome, because backhaul with microwave is significantly used in every country.
Now, another question we have is, we presented a lot of wonderful use cases in different verticals. The question from the audience is, how long will it take to have those kind of use cases in Latin America?
Well, that's a question that we all usually hear from the industry, and it is a process. We first need to understand that the process in those markets where 5G is already happening since more than a year ago is when they started to allow the deployment of infrastructure in a faster pace. Also, they had the spectrum already available. And from that perspective, we can see that it took them, let's say, 18 to 24 months to start looking at services in their own markets. In Latin America, we have just started to see the spectrum auctions. Operators, I believe, I'm clear that they are making the plans and the investments to prepare the network for 5G. So infrastructure deployment and spectrum is step 0. The first use cases that we will see in Latin America would probably be smart cities, and especially the one that was mentioned, their fixed wireless access, which is going to improve significantly the coverage of broadband access in countries in our region where, again, fiber deployment has just started, is in process. The penetration is below 30%. Therefore, the 5G FWA solution, both for urban, suburban, and especially in some rural areas, is going to help us to increase the digitalization of several services. So to be clear on the question, we could start looking at service offering in Latin America certainly next year, but with a massive deployment probably after 2021 in 2022.
I will simply add to those comments that we as a region should start embracing and development on IoT, artificial intelligence, big data, and cloud services, so we can make those a reality, combining with 5G to build those use cases. I think that's an important thing. Now, to close this session, Cesar, what will be your suggestion to ignite 5G in the region? What's needed, how to start to really make it happen in a massive deployment?
Well, this is an Spectrum conference, so we have continuously been mentioning the availability of a spectrum at the right time in the best conditions possible. So we have shown during the presentation from headquarters a couple of cases in which the flexibility on the spectrum allocation is going to be key. Therefore, we continue encouraging the regulators and the authority to continue incentivizing the investment from the operators, since they are going to be the ones being responsible of the high quality networks for the use cases. And we have seen multiple possible options, either by doing installments on the payment on long-term grace periods, or even a balance with obligations. So we encourage the collaboration between industry operators and the regulators to continue looking at creative solutions for new spectrum auctions.
Perfect. So with that, I believe we are covering all the questions from our friends in the audience. And thank you very much for your time attending this showcase from Huawei. We expect to see you soon in another event. And bye, and thank you very much. Cesar,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Joaquin, and thank you to Mr. Lin.